Hello, everyone, and welcome to our discussion on the war in Ukraine. I am Jim Hake, the founder and CEO at Spirit of America. I want to thank all the generous supporters of our work on the call today, including members of our advisory board and board of directors. We are very proud to represent you. For those who don't know, Spirit of America is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit, and we work alongside U.S. troops and diplomats all over the world to help them defend freedom and democracy. We're the only organization that has an agreement with the Department of Defense that allows our collaboration with the military, and we've been active in Ukraine since 2014. And as an organization, we understand that Ukraine right now represents the front lines of the fight to defend the free world. And we understand that what happens in Ukraine will have consequences for generations. So one of the things I've learned over the last year in our focus on Ukraine is that a lot of people don't know that they can have a way to help Ukraine win. So if you are someone who is looking for a way to help Ukraine win, a way that's accountable, legal, and highly effective, Spirit of America is it, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that. I should also note that we're tax deductible. Right now, we're focused on providing non-lethal assistance to Ukrainian Special Operations Forces. And just before this call began, I signed a purchase order for $1.1 million in 4x4 pickup trucks to help the mobility of Ukrainian forces. One last housekeeping thing, if you have questions today, please submit them via the Q&A button on your Zoom toolbar, and we'll do the best to get them to our special and honored guests. So it is my pleasure and privilege and honor to introduce Ambassador Oksana Markarova, and she has been Ukraine's ambassador to the United States for about 2 years. Prior to that, she served in Ukraine's Ministry of Finance. She has a master's degree from University of Indiana, and before that was in private equity. So, Madam Ambassador, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Jim. And let me start by saying thank you to Spirit of America. As you all know, we are fighting now for 475 days in Ukraine against a very brutal, very unjustified and unfair war. Of course, which started in 2014, but the last 475 days were especially brutal after Russia reinvaded us again. And again, as everyone knows, we do not have American boots on the ground, but we do have Spirit of America on the ground. And really grateful to you, Jim, and to all team for all the support that you have provided to our special operations, but also to people everywhere. I know how much you are doing. And all of that is really used and very much appreciated by all the Ukrainians that were able to work with your wonderful organization. The situation on the ground, go ahead.
No, thank you very much. And we are proud to be your partners in this fight to defend freedom and democracy.
Yes, so the situation on the ground is really difficult. I mean, during this 475 days, we have seen pretty much everything you can imagine about the war. We have seen the rockets flying all over the place. We have seen daily attacks on Kyiv, and not only on Kyiv, on so many other cities and towns. We have seen such a large territory being under occupation, some like Bucha for 33 days, and some like Kherson for almost a year, and some like Mariupol, which are still under occupation and still waits to be liberated by Ukrainian forces. We have seen all kinds of atrocities, and I don't need to explain to people. I mean, you've seen it all in the news. This is probably the most televised war in the history of human, kinds. But, people tortured, raped civilians, tortured and raped, mass graves with people shot in the back of their hands with their hands tied behind their back. I mean, it's one war crime after another. And our General Prosecutor's Office is actually prosecuting those already. And we have more than 90,000 cases of individual war crimes that already registered in Ukraine. And working together with our American partners, we are investigating, prosecuting, and helping people on the ground. The recent war crime, which a lot of people know, but I just want to stress specifically that the fact that Russians blew up a dam, Novkakhovka Dam, which simply, emptied the Kakhovka Reservoir, which is one of the largest reservoirs in Europe. The size of that man-made lake was the size of the Great Salt Lake in Utah, and it's a huge amount of water that has flooded many regions right now. We already have, and we don't even know how many casualties we have. And the Russians continue shelling even our first responders and civilians as we're trying to evacuate them. And of course, the long-term effects of that for the agriculture, which now is left without water in so many regions, for the safety of the nuclear station, which has used this reservoir as the main source of the cooling water, but also for all these houses and regions which are still underwater, even after water recedes. The need for repairment, for everything, for help to the people there is immense. And of course, needless to say, I mean, the goal is to liberate all Ukraine. We cannot leave our people behind because we know what happens to them. We cannot leave our country behind, and we will not rest until all sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine is restored. Therefore, help to our brave defenders, help to our special operation forces, help to all the Ukrainians who are helping this very important mission of liberating Ukraine is very, very needed. And while there are a lot of organizations that work on healthcare and educational and other, also, again, very important needs. I mean, this is the humanitarian catastrophe of an unimaginable proportions. But the work of Spirit of America specifically directed, I mean, I understand non-lethal, but still there is a lot that is needed there in order to save our brave defenders and help them to do what they can do best. So we will not rest. We will not give up. As I said, even before Russians reinvaded us on 24th of February 2022. And as our brave President Zelensky repeatedly said before and during this time, we will never surrender. We will keep fighting for our freedom, for our independence, for our land, for our homes. And we're very grateful, not just to Spirit of America, but in general to the United States of America, to the country which truly became a strategic friend #1. And we're grateful to President Biden, to Congress on a very strong bipartisan basis, but to all American individuals, to all people who really support us in this, because you understand that it's much bigger than Ukraine, because the values for which you are fighting are the values on which your great country is built. And because for all of us, both of our countries, but not just for us in the US, for the European Union, for all the countries that believe in the values we believe in, it's very important for us to win. And it's very important for us that aggressive nuclear terroristic state like Russia cannot do what they've done to us, cannot do what they've done to Georgia, to people on the MH17 flight, or to the people on the streets of the Great Britain, and go unpunished. So we have to win. We have to restore justice, and we have to restore the global security architecture as we knew it, because only in that peaceful return of the peace globally, all of us can thrive and focus on what we like to do more, grow food, raise children, and think how to actually address real problems that we all have, and also needs to be addressed, contrary to the created problems by a dictator, like unfortunately we have to be fighting with now. So with that, I would like to close my opening speech. Again, thank you very much, Jim, to all your team. Please do more. And I would be more than happy to answer questions.
Well, on the last point, Madam Ambassador, we are on the case. Question for you. With the counteroffensive underway, what can you tell us?
Well, as you've seen the messages from both the president and our Ministry of Defense, that the plans like silence, of course, the operation of that complexity. And again, as I have been saying before, it never really stopped. The idea to liberate and defend all our territory has been there since February 24th, 2022. So even before some operations of some counteroffensive operations started or are intensifying now, we were also doing it on the all-lone front. So the hard battles in Bakhmut and Mariinka and so many places in the eastern Ukraine, or the operations to hold the line and liberate, Kherson and hold the line along the Dnieper, were also part of the counteroffensive operations. But of course, now we hear about more and more villages being liberated. And again, I will refrain from public comments until the chief commander or the supreme commander, our president, will be making them. But we are very hopeful that we will be moving closer to our goal, which is, as I said, liberate all Ukraine within recognized borders. And it's going to be very difficult. And our brave defenders need a lot of support. And unfortunately, as we know, we will, there will be losses, but we will not stop regardless. And I have full trust in our brave young and women who are on the front lines in the mud, because the weather is also not very good right now in the southern Ukraine. We have all the trust in them. They can do it.
Can you conceive of a situation in which there could be a negotiated peace with Russia that doesn't have Ukraine be able to restore its sovereignty and its territory?
The short answer would be no. So, but I will elaborate a little bit. Again, I think it's not a regional conflict between the two countries. It's not a disputed territory between the two countries. It's a very black and white situation when one country, autocratic country, unprovokedly attacked a sovereign nation, peaceful nation that never posed any threat to Russia. And anything short of full restoration of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine will be a reward to Mr. Putin, and not only to him, but will be also a green light to other dictators around the world, that if you can do it with brutal force, and if you are stronger or bigger, or you can do it, then we have to accept, all of us, that there are no longer international rules that we thought were in place. So we have the will, we have the people, and with the help of our friends and allies, and that's where we need all together to stay the course. We still need more weapons. We still need tougher sanctions for Russia. We still need more support, but we never asked, and I suspect we will never ask any support from other countries with regard to the personnel. We still have enough Ukrainians who are willing to fight for our own country. So we just need a little bit more help with the weapons and assistance to Ukraine, and we can do it. And again, I think it's important for all of us that the only negotiations we conducting with Russia is actually negotiations on reparations, negotiations of how we will live as neighbors after we liberate all our territories, and how they will actually pay for what they've done to us and what they've done to the global peace.
And I have a question on the from one of our guests on the point of the weapons, Madam Ambassador. Is it still timely for American voters to contact elected U.S. congressional reps and senators to chime in on the need for ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, long-range system?
And the answer is yes. And thank you for that question. In general, I would like, when I'm asked what can we do from our American friends, and there is a lot you can do in like helping Ukrainians here, helping Ukrainians back home, donating to initiatives of your choice, to Spirit of America, to Ukraine House, to United 24. I mean, there are a number of initiatives to donate to help, but also contacting your elected officials, telling them that you support them supporting Ukraine, telling them that you support providing Ukraine with all the capabilities. And yes, the longer range missiles, ATACMS, and whatever other options are there, is something that we need. And we already have proven that we're using all of this in a very responsible and efficient manner, and that we are not using the American equipment to attack Russian territory. We need them in order to be able to conduct all the operations on our territory so that we can prepare the battlefield and that we can actually liberate our territory faster.
A question from someone I know you're very familiar with, and one of our board members, General Ben Hodges, says hello, of course. He's confident that Ukraine will one day be part of NATO. after the expectations, other than the expectations for Vilnius and a specific invitation to join NATO, what are the concrete steps you would see for Ukraine to be able to join NATO?
Thank you. Well, my respect and love to General is also well known. So I want to thank him using this opportunity for everything he does to help Ukraine. And again, helping Ukraine, he's helping freedom and democracy everywhere. So look, the security is a very important element of just and lasting peace that is in the goal, not only for Ukraine, but for all of us. We have to restore peace in the region. We have to ensure that the Black Sea is not Russian lake, but actually is used responsibly by all the countries around it, and is not a threat, but actually a source of the potential and opportunities for all NATO countries and not only NATO countries. Ukraine has decided as early as in 2008, when we first submitted our request to the NATO, that we see ourselves, our future in European Union and in NATO. And with one very simple reason, because these are the values and ideas that we share. We would like to be part of the civilized world. We don't want to be occupied by Russia. And as history has shown, the neutral status did not stop Russia from attacking either Georgia or us or any other country. So it's a completely false narrative that Russia is trying to push, that somehow NATO provoked something or NATO is enlarging. No, NATO is not enlarging. We all would like to be part of a very civilized family. It's in our hearts. It's something that Ukrainians all believe. The majority of Ukrainians support Ukraine's membership in NATO. It's actually in our constitution since 2018. And in 2020, we already became AOP status country with NATO. So a number of reforms that Ukraine has done already to increase our interoperability with NATO, to ensure that we use the NATO standards, to reform our defense sector, we already see results of these reforms. Because the Ukrainian army, which is much smaller army than Russian army, but the Russian army remained a Soviet army, our army is already capable, efficient, and NATO standard army. So I believe, and Ukraine believes that it's not only NATO that can add a lot to the security in Ukraine, but Ukraine with a battle-tested army, one of the strongest and largest armies now in the region, also has a lot to offer to NATO. Now, of course, it's a consensus decision, and as we have seen recently, during the Finland and Sweden process of joining NATO, Finland already joined, Sweden hopefully soon, and we congratulate Finland. Really glad, and happy for our Finnish brothers and sisters, and hopefully soon we'll be able to congratulate Sweden as well. But this is our choice, and I think there is no alternative to it. Now, how and when it will be done, it's of course a question for the discussion, but we really hope that our strategic friends who have shown such great support during this difficult 475 days will also show it in that issue as well.
And a question on the peace that you seek for Ukraine and that all Ukrainians are seeking in the current situation, and not just for Ukraine, but in the region. Is peace possible with Putin in power in Russia?
Well, nobody wants peace more than Ukrainians, honestly. I mean, if you ask even our brave defenders on the front lines, nobody will tell you that they like to kill people. Ukrainians are very peaceful. Ukrainians really like to grow, create, build, and unfortunately we are forced to defend our homes and our loved ones. But on the other hand, we are a democratic nation, and as a democracy, we will not tell Russians what they should do. It's up to the Russian people what they want to do with their country. If they're fine with a warmonger and a terrorist like Putin leading their country, well, bad for them. And it makes all of them complicit, and it makes all of them participate in this unjustified criminal war against us and all these war crimes. But again, we should not base our plans and our security and the peace in the region in the hands of one man. We all have to work really hard in order to strengthen our capabilities, to help Ukraine to win it, to help Ukraine secure the border, and then increase our collective security, so that regardless of whether Putin stays longer in power or not, I mean, again, we all are mortals, none of us is going to be forever on this planet. So there will be time when Russia will not be led by Putin. But I don't think it should be a critical element of our thinking. We have to think about ourselves. We have to think about countries that do believe in the principles. We have to think how we can help Ukraine to win, because it's so important for the collective security. And B, what do we have to do on the international arena to actually reform the rules and institutions and architecture that we have in place that actually didn't stop Putin from making it, so that for the future, we should have a updated system in place that will be able to do that. Similar like during the World War II, when the League of Nations did not stop the war and Hitler, the United Nations with all the new rules have been put in place. So we are in that moment again.
Yeah, sadly, the rules are the rules, and as you're proving in Ukraine, freedom is not free, and the rules have to be defended. A question for you: are the sanctions against Russia having any visible impact or effect in the eyes of Ukrainians?
Well, they have visible impact, but it's not sufficient. We can clearly say that. And again, it's understood. So the level of sanctions that have been put on Russia since February 24th have been unprecedented. Of course, a very important element of that was a speed at which the first packages of sanctions have been implemented. And the reason why they have been ready, because we worked on them 6 months before that. And Ukraine, as you remember, was advocating for preventive sanctions, because we were when all of us were looking at what Russia has been doing, getting all this equipment and people around our border, we have been saying that you have to sanction them for that. We have to prevent the attack with massive sanctions. But they were all ready and tied it up. And when the reinvasion happened, the first packages were implemented swiftly. Right now, we have to double down on sanctions too, because Russia is finding the new balances. They're finding new sources of the products that first they were denied. They're finding new customers for their oil and gas, and they're trying to do whatever they can do, still to sustain their aggressive effort. So banking system, there are 330 banks in Russia. Only 23 of them are under full blocking sanctions list. It's a small number. We have to sanction more, if not all, Russian banks. Russian oligarchs, a number of them are still not sanctioned. Russian military production companies, we know all of them. We know what they're producing. We have all these products lying in Ukraine, like today, attacking residential buildings, killing innocent people. We have to sanction all of these production companies so that they cannot buy anything from the abroad, and especially they cannot use all these evasive routes they're using now in order to get their hands on the Western produced chips, semiconductors, and the raw materials that they use to produce them. And we can go on and on and on. So sanctions do work. We're very grateful to the US and all the countries that are applying them. But in order for them to stay effective, we have to continuously increase them. And this is the number one priority in addition to the weapons priority.
We have far more questions that we're going to be able to ask in the next 4 minutes, Madam Ambassador. But one is about the legacy of Ukraine's incredible fighting forces. And looking back, if you can, before the war began, does it surprise you now the initiative and commitment that Ukrainians have had in defending their freedom?
I was not surprised. And again, if you would listen to any of my speeches months before the invasion, people would ask me, what are you going to do if Russia will decide to invade? And I said, we will not surrender. We will not give up. I know we have 400,000 veterans who will all, as one, go and defend their country. And I know we have a very capable armed forces that will do that. And I know that all people will fight. And this is exactly what we see. And I think, from the day one, when our brave president put out his phone in the first hours after the first missile fell on Ukraine, and he said, I'm here, I'm staying, I'm fighting, and we all will be fighting, and there will be no surrenders, conditional, unconditional. And we have seen how all the armed forces, all veterans, all ordinary people, women, we have now one of the largest number of women in the armed forces. We actually is the country that lifted all the restrictions for women to serve anywhere in the armed forces. And some of my friends from business, lawyers, people who I never thought would be serving with the gun in their hands, they are on the front lines defending us so that the rest of us can do what we have to do, so that I can do it here as an ambassador. So no, I was not surprised. My only big concern is that the best of us at these days are on the front lines. And we need more weapons, and we need more sanctions, and we need more support so that we can win faster, so that we will lose less of this brilliant, many languages speaking, university educated people who can do so much in their life. And they are on the front lines defending us from the barbarians who are attacking our peaceful country.
Well, on the question of initiative, I've told you this before about our work with Ukrainians since 2014, the startup of Ukrainian Army FM, the Armed Forces radio station. And as we said, for many, many years before this war began, the Ukrainians that we've worked with, who I think two of whom are on this call today with us, are the best partners we have worked with anywhere in the world. And it speaks to the importance of Americans, I think, providing the kind of assistance you all need now, because you know what to do, you know how to do it, you want to do it, and you need a little bit of help. So, Madam Ambassador, I know we're at time. We have about 40 questions, which I wasn't able to get to. My apologies. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you again today and to be your partner in this fight.
Thank you, Spirit of America, for your tireless work, really. Thank you for this help, and look forward to being together in Kyiv when we will celebrate our victory.
We can't wait. We're all for it. And thanks everyone for joining us. Again, if you're looking for a way to help Ukraine win, please talk to us at Spirit of America. Madam Ambassador, thank you. Have a good rest of the day, and the force be with you.
Thank you. God bless you.